great definition there. Brian, where do you come down on this?
Well, okay, so I'm always going to root for the underdog. I like to see people standing up to the federal government, not corporations, because corporations are too powerful, but I like to see people standing up. But in this case, the real problem that I have is what the Bureau of Land Management does with these funds. I don't have a problem with the fact that the federal government wants to manage public land and wants to have grazing rights paid, because they do provide a lot of services, but I have a problem with the services that are provided, which is essentially rounding up thousands of wild horses, sending them to slaughter, killing all kinds of wildlife that are natural predators. Yeah, and it's essentially providing public assistance to ranchers and killing all of this wildlife, which that's what the Bureau of Land Management does. So I have a real problem with the Bureau of Land Management, the BLM. But can you imagine? But this is essentially, a guy who wants to graze his cattle on public land for free, not pay public grazing rights. He's lost every court battle. He's been doing this for 20 years. He owes the federal government over $1 million. Can you imagine if people in the inner city decided, well, I'm just going to hop on the subway every day, and I don't want to pay the fare because, I shouldn't have to. It's here, and it's public,
it's
and
racist,
it's my right.
It's a racial issue.
Well, you said that, not me. But can you imagine if that's what the situation, instead of, militiamen on the, and then what if they showed up with guns, and they said, oh, you're going to ticket me for riding the subway? Talk to my Glock here.
Right. The situation in Texas is not about that at all.
No, it's not.
No,
and by the way, the party left out when he changed the subject was that the federal bureaucrats showed up with weapons first.
That's right.
So you want an armed standoff with the federal government? And
so, by the way, the one thing I want to ask Brian,
the
one thing I want to ask Brian here is, he said he stands up for the underdog. So you are against the establishment.
Well,
you are against the Obama White House.
I think, it depends. A lot of the things they're doing, I'm for some of the things that they're doing. I believe in fighting the power. I don't think that the power that we should be fighting is, health care for people and food stamp benefits and things like that. I think the power we should be fighting is over-militarization and over-incarceration.
Speaking of over-militarization, why is it that the Department of Labor, the Bureau of Land Management, the Department of Agriculture, and the Department of Education, we've just been informed, all have armed SWAT teams? Now, the Department of Education, I should point out, does not have their own SWAT team, but they have an agreement where they can borrow from another government agency to get around the law. This, again, Brian, Patty, Jordan.
Militarization, it's a huge problem, and local agencies are doing that too. We have police departments that did you see what happened? We're on the year anniversary of the Boston bombing. Remember when all of a sudden, I didn't know Boston had an army. When you see these tanks in the street, it was the police department with tanks and all this stuff.
I think it's a problem.
It's huge.
Go ahead, Jordan.
It's definitely a problem, and this is why I think so many of the Nevada ranchers actually got involved to support Bundy, and it's because they have this military-style police coming in that are part of the BLM, and they're coming in. They actually killed someone. They killed a 20-year-old kid. They pulled him over on the freeway where they do not have jurisdiction, and they killed him. And so this is why there's a lot of frustration, and I think that anytime military state coming in, it's not a good thing.
Who killed? This is Nevada?
Yeah, in Nevada. So there was this 20-year-old kid on the freeway, and he was obviously not being cooperative with them, but they saw a rifle in his car, and they shot him. Wow. So a lot of the ranchers in Nevada, this is why they're frustrated, and this is why they took such an armed stance. Now,
I have to agree with a lot with Jordan just said here, that, with what Brian said and what Jordan said, Patty. We're seeing over-militarization of the American government as of the police forces, and this is why those militia members showed up armed, because they understand what's happening in America. They understand perhaps more than most Americans do, those folks that showed up as part of that militia. Well, this is troubling what's happening in society.
It is, and you need to look at history, and you need to look at governments that have become so totalitarian that they take away the guns from the citizens, and then they arm themselves to the, this is ridiculous, the amount of arms.
But I think the point you have to remember is that we're not going to win an arms race with the government. So we have to protect our other constitutional rights. It's not the Second Amendment that's going to protect us. It's the First Amendment and the Fourth Amendment, which we've completely lost. Nobody talks about the Fourth Amendment anymore. The search and seizure and privacy.
But then at the same time, I would also hope that the government doesn't send in, nukes to deal with the situation in Nevada. They're going to send in armed people with guns, but we're not going to be in an arms race with the military.
And that's why we need to protect our democratic democratic voice and control these government entities through our democracy, we're not going to control it by showing up with guns and having an armed standoff with them. We're going to control it by through the ballot box.
There's no question the average everyday citizen loses an arms race battle with the government, but that's not a reason to throw the Second Amendment out the door. As the people of Ukraine are learning how important it is to have weapons in the hands of
And
the
it's
people.
important to unite voices like our liberal friend here with the conservative voices on these issues where we agree, because we all agree first, second, well,
All right.
maybe on
Well,
the second.
with
but
that, Patty, we have to all agree that we're out of time. I want to thank Brian Pease.